So one of the main talking points coming away from the comment section after today's episode was how much Kanan is a simp for Davina. He made $100 just to buy her some groceries, and she knows what she's doing. She knows Kanan likes her and will do anything for her, but at the same time there'll come a time where Davina will have to go because she's making Kanan soft. She's making Kanan make mistakes, just like how we showed her where the stash house was. A war is coming with Unique, and it's going to create a divide with the Thomas organization. So we're going to look at a potential split with the Thomas family and how cold Raquel is, as well as Jukebox in this video too, breaking down some of the key topics and comments that you guys raised. But if you are new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Universe related over the coming months. But let's talk about whether Kanan knows whether his mom had something to do with D-Wiz's death, because it was made pretty clear by this face that Kanan made in this scene that he knew his mom had something to do with D-Wiz's death. Troy Henderson said, I feel he knows his mom set D-Wiz up by the way he was looking at her, and in Power when you get that look, you know, he gave Raquel the same look that Tariq gave Tasha when she killed Lakeisha. Brandy Lewis said Kanan is putting 2 and 2 together. He can tell something isn't right. The way he didn't want to hold his mom's hand in the end, I think he knows that his mother had something to do with D-Wiz's death. And I'm so glad Troy and Brandy mentioned this, because this is something I wanted to dive deeper on with a few things, because they didn't really outright tell us that Kanan knows that his mom had something to do with D-Wiz's death. This phase tells us everything that you need to know. And some of you may have heard the saying from the 48 Laws of Power, the truth is generally seen, rarely heard. And this is what we can take away from this scene. The truth has been seen by Kanan, and this face from Raquel also tells us that she knows that Kanan knows, and he's certainly someone that won't forget. And in this episode earlier, we had Kanan mention D-Wiz again when he said that Famous ain't built for this, and the death hurt Kanan because he knows he's lost a soldier, and he was the one responsible for his death. Now you can say they're supposed to know the consequences when they pull the gun and pull that trigger, but they didn't know the consequences of their actions at the time. And this is something that Kanan will now learn. He'll think twice before pulling the trigger next time because his actions were all based on emotion. And another quote from the 48 Laws of Power in relation to this is how emotions cloud reason, and if you can't see the situation clearly, you can't prepare for it and respond to it with any degree of control. And you can put Kanan in this situation where emotions cloud his judgment, especially when it comes to Davina, which I'm going to touch on later on in the video. But Jukebox hasn't told Kanan about D-Wiz getting into the car with Lulu, and at some point she might, and this along with other factors could cause a divide and a split with the Thomas family, and a split that I'm going to come to in just a moment, because I want to stay with this scene at the end of the episode. I've spoken about this scene from Kanan's perspective, but let's look at this scene from Raquel's perspective instead. And I'm going to read you 2 comments, one from D-Fid and another from Tommy Sanders Jr., with them saying how Raquel is one cold-hearted queen pin. Imagine sacrificing someone else's child for something your child did, and then you go and visit the mourning parent to comfort them. And I couldn't have put it better myself. Raquel was so cold in this scene, knowing that she's comforting and putting her arm around the woman that she took her son from, and it was really a cold scene from Rack. But it's a whole move that looks like a retaliation from Unique's crew, and it took the target away from Kanan's back. It was certainly a smart move, but a short-term fix. And the key word here is a short-term fix, because one person they're yet to see, and will most likely see at some point, is D-Wiz's brother. Now I thought for a second that when they went to go pay their respects to D-Wiz's mom, I thought we may get a glimpse of D-Wiz's brother, but then I remembered how D-Wiz said his brother was out of town, and he disappears a lot. There was no pictures on the wall of him either to say that's who we should be looking out for. So it's just one to park for now and revisit at some point in the future, because I'm sure this whole situation is going to do a full circle and we're going to come back to it. But let's talk about this potential split within the Thomas family that's been foreshadowed, and it's something that Dale mentioned in his comments, saying there will be a division with the family with Lulu and Raquel versus Kanan and Marvin, with Jukebox neutralized. So I just want to kind of give my thoughts on the Thomas family and the potential divide and split to come, because I see it too. I definitely see a split coming. If you go back to the original Power, there was always a clear divide with the way of thinking and doing things with Tommy and Ghost, for example, and everybody in the Thomas family have their own ideas of how they want to do things, how the business should be run, and Rack and Lulu mainly agree with each other. But then you have to add in the factors of their love interest, Rack and Symphony, and Lulu and Jessica, where Jessica has planted a seed in Lulu's mind. But the big divide will come because Kanan and Marvin will feel like they're being pushed aside by Rack when it comes to the business and decision making. Kanan knows that his mom's had D-Wiz killed, and no doubt will push him a little further away, and something that will bring him and Marvin closer together. And then we also have Marvin and Tony, and we know Tony isn't a huge fan of Raquel, so just like how Jessica has planted a seed in Lulu's mind about him getting into music, Tony will most likely plant a similar seed into Marvin's mind about him taking the organization and more of a control from Rack and the business. Prime Gaming said, after Davina tells Unique about the stash house, this will heavily backfire on Marvin and Rack and will definitely rage at him. Kanan will definitely clip Davina soon. And I'm just going to pop up a few similar comments where people have said Kanan made a dumb move to come out right in front of the house to talk to Davina. Davina is definitely going to get Kanan or one of the Thomas family members or crew crews hurt or killed, even their stash house hit by Unique's crew, with Brian calling him naive. But this is the question I want to ask you all. Will Kanan kill Davina? Davina's going to tell Unique all about the stash house, that's a given, and it's going to backfire on Marvin, and it's going to backfire on Kanan, and it's going to contribute towards this divide of the family that I just mentioned. But does Kanan have it in him to kill Davina? Now my personal opinion on this is, I do think Davina is going to die. I do think she's going to die, but I don't think Kanan has it in him to kill Davina. Not yet anyway. Davina's actions have to cause a huge death or consequence for the Thomas organization for Kanan to really realize that he can't trust Davina. But until something big like this happens, I just can't see Kanan killing her because he's so in love with this girl. And I know Kanan spoke of you ain't a real killer till you kill someone you love, but I do think it's too early to see this from Kanan. I still feel Jukebox will be the one to play a major role when it comes to Davina's death, because as I mentioned before, that Jukebox is way more advanced than Kanan. She's a hustler, she knows how to stand her ground, and she knows how to protect herself. We're seeing all the facets of Jukebox that we knew she had, and I feel she'll be the one to kill Davina, but that's just my prediction anyway. You still may think it may be Kanan, you might agree with me on Jukebox, but either way, Davina is dying this season. I can't see her lasting beyond this season, and I do think we're going to see her in a body bag towards the end of the season. But let's stick to the topic of Jukebox, because J9898 said the way Jukebox face and manner changed when she was walking away from Nicole, that symbolized the transition from LaVerne to Jukebox. LaVerne the nice girl, whereas Jukebox being the more cold and vicious. And I was thinking about how Jukebox sang her heart out at the end of last episode to someone who could barely get her words out in this scene and was so shy. In my reviewed recap, I spoke about how there's two sides to Jukebox's life. There's one side where she lives with Nicole, where she comes away from South Jamaica Queens, where she's LaVerne. But when she's in South Jamaica Queens, she's Jukebox. She's a hustler. Pulling licks and robberies is something we associated with Jukebox in power, and you can see why Jukebox became ruthless. People needed to stick to their plan and heist, and there's so many Jukebox connections, Easter eggs, and references from the young Jukebox to the Jukebox that we saw in power, and this is just one of them. We know what happened to Wookie when we were introduced to Jukebox in the robbery scene in season 3. If you don't stick to the plan, then she's ruthless, and it's something similar to what we saw in this scene. But there's so much more I want to talk about when it comes to Jukebox, and I'm planning a video for this week to talk all about the Easter eggs and connections, so that video is coming this week in my storyline breakdowns. But I had a lot of people saying this episode was boring, it was too slow, and I have to disagree because I thought this is an episode we needed to see characters develop, to develop the plot and storyline, and not every single episode is going to be 10 out of 10. There's going to be episodes that build up characters and foreshadow certain situations, because you guys know I've mentioned a big twist to come in episode 5, which a few of the actors have teased on Instagram, and I do feel next week's episode is going to be more action packed, but another one that builds up the storyline towards episode 5. But if you haven't seen the trailer already, then I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Is there a divide coming with the Thomas family, and will Kanan kill Davina? That's the question. I feel at some point this situation will have to give with Kanan's feelings this season. I don't think this whole situation between Davina and Kanan is going to drag into season 2. I'd be very surprised if it did. So I think she's going to die this season. But will it be Kanan who pulls the trigger, or is it going to be Jukebox? Drop me your comments down below in the comment section. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 3 and Power Universe related over the coming months. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.